It's 2 o'clock and it's Wednesday, so it must be time for the weekly briefing. This week, we're going to have a lot of fun with the weekly briefing because I get to introduce you to both advisors we have at RevThink. As many of you have already met Joe Valentine in a previous work that we've done here in sales. And this is our introduction to Lisamarie. Lisa, as you said a minute ago, this is your first time on camera. So we are really indoctrinating you today into this process pretty quickly, aren't we?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I'm here for it. I'm glad to see y'all.
Before we jump into the topic, I think it might be nice for people just hear a minute of your background, how you and I met, or anything you kind of want to just that people know of why you are RevThink's advisor for production. Because I think you have a very unique two hats that you've worn, and I think that's really great for people to know that part of your experience.
I've over the years, I've really honed the skill of like putting different hats on my head and then figuring out how to make it work with every single outfit. But my background is in commercial production. So I started out way at the bottom of the chain, worked my way all the way up from originally I was a shooter. I shot editorial and commercial stills. And then I transitioned into producing. I have a business background. I have an MBA. I've owned several companies, and when I transitioned into producing, it was really the perfect blend of both the creative and the business and the math and the finance and all the things. So started out as an associate producer, worked my way all the way up to EP, working at production companies. I own my own production company, in-house at brands, on the agency side. And yeah, further along in my career, I discovered, I really love serving this industry. I love serving creative people, and I wanted to figure out a way to more deeply serve them. And I discovered coaching. And so I got certified as a professional coach, and I have now blended the two with my expertise in production and my ability to like bring awareness to your thoughts and how you think about your business into an advisory role here at RevThink.
Yeah, I feel so lucky we caught you at this perfect moment in your career. You've captured all the different experiences that we need, working at agencies, working inside of companies, owning your own business. So employee, business ownership, agency side, studio side, coaching side, business hat. You have it all. I'm pretty sure you're ready to take over RevThink. I'm ready. You can just like step right in here and do it. So great. Thanks for jumping into this conversation. Joe and I are going to kind of, we're going to be the listeners here today. I think we're going to really be the ones asking questions or processing what's going on. But this conversation came up recently about the triple bid. And here's what we know. Most people hear triple bid and they think, though, let's just admit, they hate it. They hate the idea of it. I think maybe, I don't know, they feel like they're being taken advantage of or something. Like there's just a reason why like the triple bid doesn't really stick in our favorite part of the industry.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I would even love to hear everybody that's here that has been a part of a triple bid or that is a part of your own process. What are your biggest pain points with it? If you want to drop it in the chat, I'd love to like see what some of those are. But it really comes down to there are a few things. There are two sides of the coin, right? There are the people that are invited to bid, and then there are people that are requesting the bid. Both of those parties have different needs and have different wants that need to be met, right? So as someone that's invited to a bid, like Tim said, like you might feel like this just takes so much time, or they want us to get all of our stuff together and not give us enough time to actually do it properly. You might be thinking like, you might have that question in your head of like, am I just the third option? Am I the throwaway option? Do they really like me? Do they really like my work? How am I going to stack up against everybody else and what they're going to present? How is the way I'm interpreting this vision and really in line with their brief, or are they looking for something more? So there are all kinds of things, lots of input that is all just coming from your mind, honestly, right?
Yeah. That's what I feel like that's what we often feel like we're stuck against the wall. Joe, I don't know what you look at your Barry to say something, but
no, let's keep going. I'll dive in.
Okay, yeah. He's gonna hold his opinion for a minute there. Because
Well,
as the triple bid often feels like, well, that someone hasn't made up their mind. And so they're fishing or they're stirring something up. Maybe the hardest is that they're comparing us. So I don't know if everyone feels this way, but sometimes I'm pretty sure that when you get into some triple bid, you're thinking, oh my gosh, those two, those are not in my league. So why are they even talking to me about them? Or you think of, I know I'm a triple bid and maybe it's a requirement of the studio or the agency that's putting it out there. I'm pretty sure I'm just a throwaway. I'm just doing somebody a favor by making this thing happen.
yeah. And like, that's a really excellent point, right? Because on the other side of the table, you're going to have two different like points of view. One is, I already know who I want to work with. Why do we have to go through this process on our side, like on the actual like award side, right? Um, but then there's also all of the benefits of triple bidding that brands and agencies, like, they use this for a reason. They use this mechanism for a reason. And that reason is to put the most effective options in front of their clients so that they can ultimately decide. When the decision is put in the client's hands, it takes a lot of pressure off of the agency or the brand, right?
Oh, I could totally hear you putting your agency hat on when you said that right there. So
Yeah.
from the agency point of view, the one that's asking for the triple bid, right? So I'm going to have you wear this hat for a minute here. You're working at an agency, you've been handed a job and you're willing to, I don't know why you'd be willing to do this. You're our biggest enemy if you say yes to this job, but you're saying, yeah, I'm going to go out there and create a triple bid and get 3 different studios out there getting this work, right? What is the agency looking for when they ask for all 3 bids? Is it just a game they're playing for procurement purposes, or is there actually an exercise that's worth their while in doing the 3 bids?
Both sometimes, right?
Okay.
Some of these companies are going to have a triple bidding process and a threshold, like a budgetary amount or a limit in which you must triple bid. Like, they might say, okay, 125,000 and up, you have to triple bid. Anything under, you can award it directly. But it's beneficial to them for a few reasons. One, financial, for sure. Are they getting the best price for the ask that's on the table? It helps them to reduce like any unnecessary fat, or it helps them have a clear sense by comparing apples to apples, ideally, who's way off and who's spot on. It helps them to eliminate bias as well. So having 3 options, you allows them to, whatever their priority is for the award, whether that's the creative vision and the execution and like the approach, or if it's the actual budget, they have 3 people that they're looking at instead of just one. You've all probably have, or maybe some of you have experienced situations where it's like the CEO threw his friend in the ring. He wants his friend to be included in the triple bid.
Yeah, exactly.
So having two other people helps to eliminate a little bit of that bias. Does it always go that way? It depends, right?
Could you ask, I mean, if you're a production company, one thing I heard you said, by the way, which is interesting, is that some agencies and studios have a threshold that if it's above that threshold, they need a triple bid.
Mhm.
I'm going to guess right now, like, I don't know why this hadn't occurred to me before, but if that's true, you could ask, do you guys have a threshold that's a requirement for a triple bid? And now you know what the minimum bid is for those projects, right? So sometimes when
Mhm.
that phone rings and they say, or whatever it is, Slack rings, I don't know what rings anymore. When something rings and you answer it and you say, hey, we need a triple bid, you automatically go like, cool, that's a $125,000 project minimum because they're asking me to do it.
Right,
You could
right.
literally do your homework and figure that out, couldn't you?
Totally, totally. And like that asking really big questions like that's important. I mean, ideally, the budgetary ceiling is in the bid specs, which if you're invited to triple bid, you should absolutely 1,000,000% have bid specs in your hand before you do anything, so that you have something to, as a basis and a foundation, to ask all of the questions that you need to ask. Um, Sometimes you're invited to bid and it's not explicit that it is a triple bid.
Yeah.
So many people go, like, learn later that, oh, they're up against 2 other people.
Yeah, Jeremy says that actually in one of his comments here. He says, we've been gifted the job on a triple bid, not knowing there are other studios who are pitching, wasting their time and vice versa. So you
Mhm.
are going through the process, and then there wasn't even transparency, or it's almost like someone's playing a game with you instead of just telling you in reality so you can make good business decisions. Um,
Mhm.
that's an interesting one. I also like Hung. Hung, he says, it's evolved into a nasty tool for agencies to mask their true intention and hire their go-to while appearing to be fair. So these are how people think about triple bids. Andrew
Yeah.
Sorley says we played that game. It sucks. Like, yeah, right. So there
Yeah.
does seem to be like a bias totally against it. But what you're saying is on the agency side, listen, these are people too. They have a process. In some cases, I guess if I was representing a brand at an agency and I was getting some high bids, I would have, as an operations person, say, sorry, triple bid. I need to know for sure that nobody is skimming something or operationally putting information out there that doesn't match what other two bids are. I want to know where my team is and could be gaming the system in an unfair way. And a triple bid does kind of remove that. It's unfortunate that studios have to pay the price for that internal operations, but it does make sense to some degree.
I
Yeah.
I would also love to bring up a couple of points. I'd love to advocate for just a modicum of empathy for agency folks. As an independent agency owner, I never requested a triple bid unless the client's procurement required it. And every agency is different. Different organizations have different rules, but we had, at any agency I've been at, we had no problem being transparent about the situation of the triple bid and sort of like the reason we even requested it. I would have loved a number of times to not have bothered. Although I'll say I learned a lot about capabilities and hired folks off a triple bid for subsequent bids. So there is not no value in doing this, but the idea that it is always with malicious intent may be a little bit of an exaggeration.
Yeah, no, I think it's fair. I mean, so Lisa, put your production team hat on now
Mhm.
and talk about
Yeah.
like, because you understand the agency side, obviously you can make the arguments for that, but as a agent, as a studio producer or a vendor for an agency or a brand, you actually worked internally at a brand. That's his agency by itself. Um, when you get that triple bid moment, what does that feel like? Is that, do you
Yeah.
recognize it because you've seen the other team's playbook as opportunity, or do you also realize it's something that needs to be navigated?
I look at it as a huge opportunity. I look at being invited to bid in general as a huge opportunity, but especially a triple bid, because here's what it does for me. I think you're either going to fall into one of two different camps. You're going to fall into the camp of imposter syndrome, fear, nervousness, thinking they're out to get you, thinking it's like malicious intent or whatever. If you're thinking that way, do you think you're going to get an award?
No way. Right. You
No, you're
basically
not.
sabotage yourself. Yeah.
Correct. Correct. So the other frame of thought is you get invited to bid. It's a triple of you entering that engagement in the belief that I have already won this job. If you are in the belief that I have already won this job and you know that you're up against two other people, I know for me personally, I'm just like, let's go. Like, we're gonna, like, I don't know if I can swear on this call, but I feel like I want to.
You can.
Um,
Ryan Summers says you can swear. Ryan just swore about swearing. He said, fuck
yeah,
yeah. He's pretty sure he just said that.
yeah.
Look at that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm thinking, okay, I'm competing against other people. I'm going to put the best fucking creative in front of them that's going to blow their minds. I'm going to push my team to come up with ideas, to come up with approaches that save them money, save them time, that are going to blow past whatever goals or metrics or measures of success that they've established or KPIs. I'm going to be the best one in the room, period. Then the other thing that I think about is, or that I believe is, every opportunity is an opportunity, regardless of the outcome, favorable, unfavorable, or neutral. I'm going to walk away learning something. I'm going to learn about this agency and how they work. I'm going to get the vibe. I'm going to learn, I mean, if I ask the right questions, who I was up against. I'm going to learn what could I have done better. And you're going to take all of this learning with you to the next one. And maybe you're going to lose the next one and the next one, and the next one. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
The outcome has nothing to do with your identity as a business or as a creative. It could have absolutely nothing to do with you. But I think a lot of people make it mean something about themselves or about their businesses.
Yeah, preach it, lady. I want to say, like, what you're asking someone to do when they're being that bold is that you're asking them to hurt more when they lose. Like when you go into all those beliefs, what people think is like, yeah, but if I do all that effort and I lose, it's going to hurt so much more. And what you recognize, what we know to be true, is that people, when they lean into those opportunities, one, they win more often. That's one of the key aspects that's there. But also they have this kind of a sense of what a winning attitude. I don't know any better way of saying it. And that winning attitude allows you to capture the goods from it, even if you weren't awarded the project. So you say, yeah, sure, I wasn't awarded the project, but I did meet this person, or I developed this great design, or I had this moment to pitch something I always wanted to try to pitch. Those are all big wins. And you find like those winning, I don't know, attributes, regardless if the project itself comes in as awarded to you or not. And that often starts an upward cycle of businesses. I find businesses that call me that are in that downward spiral. I say, like, sometimes I have to step in as the cheerleader, the first believer that we can win. And that starts to build up a totally different attitude and different change of pace. So what you're saying is yeah, steal the moment, take the bid and run with it. Why not? There's an opportunity in any thing given to us. Yeah.
I say that I like, yes to all of it.
Yeah.
That doesn't necessarily mean you should say yes to every bid invitation though too, which I know we'll probably get to at some point.
No, go for it. Tell me now. So why wouldn't I say yes to? Yeah.
Why would you say yes?
Or why would you say no? When's the right time to walk away?
Okay, this is a good question. This can go a lot of different directions, right? Obviously, context. Have you worked with these people before or not? Is this your first engagement with them? So evaluating that. Are you getting all of the information that you need in order to put a pretty confident idea and bid and budget and treatment, like putting it across the table? Do you have what you need there? You're looking for flags. You're looking for red flags. And like something that Tim teaches at RevThink are those 3 R's, right? The real, relationship, and revenue. Yeah. So you're making decisions from that point of view too. Like, okay, they may not have their shit completely together, but the concept and the idea and the creative is really, really amazing. It could be great for us. It can generate more work for us down the road. Real, checked.
Yeah.
The relationship, are these people like good? Would I consider them like aligned clients for me and for our company? And then lastly, revenue. And am I going to profit off of this thing?
Yeah. And if you don't hit those are good reasons to walk away, for sure.
Yeah.
Or at least like you can win in a couple of those. You can even sometimes recognize the relationship is worth the experience. I have to use those 3 R's with people because they want to always imagine it's about the relationship, and they give up all the money and any good product. They just burn themselves out in the long run. So trying to get some discernment around good decision making. But sometimes also, don't you feel like you get bullied? Like someone's actually just using the triple bid to kind of like work against you, to create their own agenda, I don't know. I find these false promises of like, yeah, but there'll be other work. And if you do this for me, then I'll give you more and more and more. And Joe, I'm going to blame this on you and the salespeople. I feel like the salespeople put the most pressure on us to like say yes to everything. Cause I don't know, you guys have, happy thoughts, no matter what the project is. It's always going to be a good one.
Well, I what I would say to that is like every relationship is 50-50. You might be in a situation like that where, they bring you in, you don't get it or whatever. And they're like, but like, I like you and I want to work with you in the future at some point down the road. It's like, okay, the door is open, but what are you doing on your end to capture that opportunity? It's not all of their responsibility. Go ahead, Joe.
I'd love to jump in there too. Anyone who has had a conversation with me knows that I believe the solution to most of the problems we're talking about is just say the quiet part out loud. So what are the questions we really want to know when we're engaging in a triple bid situation? What's the reason behind it? What's the budget for it? Do you actually have a favorite, and do I have a real fighting chance? And what is it you would love to see for me to either win this pitch or win consideration? You wouldn't believe the number of times I have not been asked those questions, and then someone is creating a narrative about what did or didn't happen here. More often,
Yes.
those questions are welcome.
You're welcome. And
Oh my God.
meaning that if someone asks those questions, you would actually answer them.
Absolutely.
Is there a situation where you wouldn't answer those questions? Is there a reason why you would never, from the agency side, answer that?
Personally, I can't think of one, but when we talk about malicious intent, some people have it sometimes. And it's a really good sign that things may not be on the up and up if you can't get a straight question answered.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, it could also just be lack of understanding. I could ask the question and actually not know what the answer that you give me means. So I can say, what's the reason for a triple bid? And you go through some process, and I think I don't know how to convert that to should I do it or not, right? If I don't know what those qualifiers are, I might not accomplish that. So an education might be necessary from your side to know why you're asking those questions, not just know what those questions are. Yeah.
But another like piggybacking off of the questions that Joe just put out there, the other benefit of asking those questions is you are being positioned as a thought leader and an expert.
Mm-hmm.
People hire experts. You transfer certainty when you are an expert. If you're asking expert questions, they're going to have more trust in you.
Well, what I love there is you're actually breaking through those relationship barriers too. You're kind of just saying like, can we be transparent? Like, can we talk like normal people and try to figure out what you actually need? So happy to put the third bid in there, be pitch in the process, make whatever decisions I need to be smart on my business side. But what is you're trying to accomplish? Why are you doing it this way? You know, what is the outcome you're looking for? Why did you call us? You know, when you look at the other two people, can you actually tell me who the other people I'm competing with, by the way? That's a big indicator if they're not going to share that with you. But what role do we play? So when we come to the table, how should we be different than the others two? That's what we want to know. And not the same as them, but different, so that you're getting, you said earlier, Lisamarie, like the creative scope is what you're looking for in a triple bid. So that you would want 3 different points of view coming in. It's good for you to know what your role is, so you can be that third point of view when it's your time to bid or pitch or be part of that conversation.
Yeah.
Here's I don't know what's happening. I just read Ryan's answer to what Hung Thang said. Hung said, my favorite answer to all of our good intention vetting efforts has been, I'm not in a position to disclose that detail because you are a serious contender. And Ryan says, you need to walk away, Hung. Why don't you walk away? Yeah. Yeah. It really is like, there's like BS answers that come
Yeah.
in a certain way.
Some people like to gatekeep. I was just gonna say, some people like to gatekeep that early in the state, like at that point in time.
Yeah.
I'm not one of those people, but there are people that do.
Yeah, I mean, it's the producer's discretion that's there. I think that you can understand that you're dealing with a control freak or somebody that's making certain calculations they think would benefit them and not the bigger picture, which could be an indicator of what your responsibility is. Hey, if you're a more mature person or a more mature firm, you could deal with somebody that is gatekeeping and work with them because you know what your role is. And sometimes you walk away.
Here's a reason why they might gatekeep on that question specifically. If you are a smaller shop and they have bigger dogs in the mix and they tell you who else is in the mix, giving away that information can influence how you plan the budget for it. You might inflate your numbers and you might, increase your budget knowing that you're in the mix with other people. You might feel like, or there might be the illusion that there's more money available to you.
So they're actually calling you to be the low bid. And if you find out you're pitching against bigger studios or studios that have a more perceived high price than you think, oh, you're supposed to raise your bid. And they're actually trying to keep you low to have a low price leader in case their client needs it.
that, or they just want to take any potential influence away from how you would naturally scope and bid the project.
Interesting. That's interesting. But you could
They're
still
just,
say, what role do you want me to play? Hey, I know I'm going against two other people. I'm imagining you don't want me to be the same as them. If you can't give me their names, at least tell me what you want me to do different than the other two of them, the other two bidders, so I can stand out with the expertise you're expecting from me. That's really cool.
Yep. Everybody write that down. That should be a question you ask all the time, no matter what, all day, every day.
Yeah.
What do you need to see? That's outside of like the standard stuff you're gonna get in a bid response or treatment.
I mean, the title of this is the frequently missed questions. And that is like the question that people often forget, is that there's something about being a business owner where we're in comparison, we try to compare similarities to others. And so, especially if I was arguing with you of why you should choose me over them, I would compare similarities to say, well, I'm just as good as they are at this. I'm just as good as they are at that. Why wouldn't you choose me? That's how you think you're going to win the argument. In reality, you need to be able to say, hey, I know they do this in a strong way. Good for them. This is my strength over here. And I want to be able to know what the difference is, and let the client choose. I mean, honestly, they should choose the right partner for their project, and do it very well. But we need to be able to speak our voice and know where we belong. Okay, so let's get practical here. So let's just say, okay, we're gonna be in the triple bid process. Where do we start? We're gonna make Joe. I want you to chime in here too when I misspeak on something or ask one more question if I'm not following through all the good ones. But I'm gonna say to you, like, Lisamarie, I have a project where it's going to award soon, and I am going to triple bid it. I actually need to triple bid it, and my client's requesting that. What's the first question you're going to ask me?
Well, the first question that you need to ask is one to yourself. And it's very simple. It's like, do I actually have the bandwidth and availability to say yes to bidding on this job? That's the first place to start. The next question that you're going to ask.
Would an answer tip you over if I said, hey, you might not have the bandwidth, but it's $1 million? Would you go, I'm going to start changing the priorities? I mean, is there any answer to that would influence that?
I think that depends. Person to person, business to business, and like what your overall strategy is, how you're looking at this potential client. Is this somebody that you feel like you're going to have some longevity with or repeat business with? If it's for like bonkers money and you have trusted subcontractors that you can oversee the job and like hand it off and be very communicative with that other client, and so that they feel cared for and that everything is still going to go off without a hitch, like, yeah, maybe you make that decision.
I would say that too. We often, if you're working with me, we'd actually know how to take advantage of it in a growth cycle, what investments are there, or when to walk away because it's going to just really truly drag us down. So the different aspects. Okay, that's good question number one. What's the second question?
The second question would be, if they didn't already deliver it to you, I would be asking for the bid specs. So maybe they send you a brief, but like I would ask for the actual bid specs. That being that having like the bidding timeline, that having the budget, that having like all of the nitty gritty information that you need in order to develop your bid, figure out your approach. Sometimes that's not always shared up front. Sometimes you're going to ask that question, they're going to be like, what's that?
Yeah, I was going to say, what is that? What would be included in big bid specs?
So some of the things that I mentioned is going to include the roles and responsibilities of each party: production, client, agency. I'm looking at this through like a live action lens too, so not sure how applicable it is to the animation side and like post side of the world, but budget, timeline of like dates of like, okay, creative call will be this day, treatment call will be this day, making the award on this day, pre-production begins this day. It's going to include any major call outs, like, is this union, is this non-union, is the like, where is this shooting? Again, live action lens. All of the things that you need to know.
And if it's missing something, permission granted, go ask those questions.
Absolutely, yes. And I would ask those questions on a call. I would first push to have a call to field the questions. They're either going to come back and say, yeah, let's jump on a quick 15 minutes, or they're going to blow you off and say, just shoot them to me over email. I'll answer them if I can. push for the call first, because that call is just giving you more face time with that client, more opportunity to connect deeper with them.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the second time that you would be asking questions would probably be after that creative call.
Okay. So then, what's the next question we want to ask?
I would ask, is this a triple bid? I would ask that question that we've already talked about, which is like, what do you want to see? What do you need to see outside of the standard stuff? I would ask, if it is a triple bid, who else am I bidding against? Can you share that with me? I would ask, is there any flexibility with the budget? I would ask, I feel like I have a list of these questions somewhere that I could probably.
Joe, is there any of these
maybe.
questions that salespeople that you would say the sales team should ask this before production is into this details?
Is the job real? Number one. But want to shout out one that Ryan threw in the chat earlier, which is why us? Whether you're telling us who the other bidders are or not, why do you think we'd be a good fit? And then to build on that, what's it going to take for us to get seriously considered? Those to me are sales questions before this even makes it to production. If your sales are not vetting the opportunity as real, serious, and vetting the intent as sort of like genuine and not whatever, malicious, then production has no business getting involved.
I like what Ryan said there too. Why isn't your internal team working on it? There's something smart to even call out of like, I know you have an internal team. Give me an understanding of where they fall in this pipeline or how they would belong in your process. Yeah.
Yeah. And here's my favorite one that a lot of people forget to ask. And that is creative final at the time of bidding? Has it already been approved? Or are you expecting revisions post award? Because then you're going to know what you need to be including in your scope assumptions and considerations as far as like estimated depending on where things shake out with creative and the right to revise your bid and your estimate.
I was just going to say that you have to give yourself permission and in the process permission, the right to revise the bid. Even as we know, like the scope changes are a big piece of what we're trying to work against. You don't have to feel so committed to that first bid. Turn that into a dialogue as much as possible. As you said, jump on a phone call, use it as something. I just helped a client last week go with this process of creating a range. Hey, the way we're talking about it, there's actually a few different ways of thinking about this thing. So putting a range of bids out there and get a better understanding of there are different ways of solving this problem. Why not dialogue if we can find the solution for you?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm curious what Joe thinks about this too, but like with giving a range, like saying, okay, here's what can be done for the budget that you have against the ask. Here's what the actual ask is going to cost. And then here's another idea that we have, and here's the price for it.
The way I would frame those to my clients in the past is here's what we can do, and here's what we could do. Oftentimes the agency and the studio are in the same boat. We know what it takes to make the work we want to make, and client education is a hill you're climbing forever until you die. And so as much advocacy as I can get from my creative partners around the range that needs to show up to help paint a picture for the client of, if you want the thing you want, this is what it costs, is always good.
Yeah. Yeah. Well said. All right. So then I'll ask this one last question. What we've kind of discovered is that triple bidding isn't always a lose, right? It's not always a chase to the bottom. Sometimes there's a lot to discover, and even our bids can change. The price can change throughout the bidding process.
Yeah. And I think, one thing that I think people can get hung up on, either because they're afraid to ask questions or they don't know the right questions to ask, is they're asked to bid, they're given the budget, and they're like, okay, that's it. That's the budget. That's what we've got to work with. And then the questions stop there. I cannot tell you, I will tell you this, there's a slim % chance, very slim. Joe, please tell me if you agree or disagree with this, that there is not more money available for the job. There's always more money available, more money on the table. Asking the right questions is going to help you capture that and capitalize on that opportunity. Again, this kind of goes back to what we were talking about being a thought leader and positioning yourself as an expert by the types of questions that you ask. Like, it's up to you, like knowing that there's always more money, like what do you need to do as a producer, as a CEO, as a business owner in order to capture that money?
Yeah, I mean, I know
What do
as
you
a
need to be
producer,
asking?
when I put bids together, and you could start hearing the conversation change, you're realizing, well, there's new opportunities here. And sometimes my initial bid can go up, 3 times what the initial bid is. I don't know if you
Yeah.
guys have had situations where like you've had major increases from like what your initial bid was to what the final is.
Yeah. I mean, there's one that stands out for me personally. It's for a national retailer. The budget that we were given was 500,000. And by the time things were all said and done, it was at 1.8. So it was a huge jump, a huge jump. And all that came from was leading with curiosity, continuing to ask questions, saying, hey, have you guys thought about this? How do you think that would land with the rest of your stakeholders and teams? Do you think this would be beneficial to have these additional cut downs, these additional assets, these additional whatever, whatever, whatever? And they're going to say, ooh, yeah, ooh, yeah, ooh, yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
we have money, even though we said we didn't.
Yeah. Well, if they kept you in a small scope when they asked you for it, we thought you were just the production company that was going to just do that one day of shooting. We only had 500,000. But if you're talking about you can do all these more capabilities, and your curiosity and the dialogue we're having with you and the overall understanding of what your scope is that you can take on, yeah, of course you can capture more and more of the pie as you work through it. There really is kind of an education process to this, and that's in a way to some degree, I would encourage some to just recognize that the triple bid is the greatest moment to learn. I saw a couple comments of like, you go after it to be the wild card. Like, we have nothing to lose. Let's put ourselves out there. Maybe we'd express something or explore something new. And if we lose it ever, well, there'll be another one. We'll capture that moment. Or I've heard where other people are using it as an anchor for future work. I didn't think I was going to win this one, but I wanted to express what we do as a company, a certain creative view or aspect or technology or service that we provide, that I'm going to throw into this bid as a marketing piece. So then in the future, they think of us as like, that company, the one with the crazy idea and design, let's call them on this project coming up, and put yourself out there for something new. Yeah. Well, I'd be willing to, anybody have any questions? Open up the microphone, say hello. Yeah, go ahead, Ryan.
Ryan, shocking.
Yeah.
Shocking. I know. I mean, I have a really big question that's like tangential to this, but this is a good audience, is like, how do you know when you do get an ask for a triple bid, whether it's like an unpaid pitch or a paid pitch or just a like numbers and time, how do you know if you're the check bid? Because this has happened. I mean, this happened to me in studios I've worked at before, where you're like, there's no intention of hiring you, but they're asking you because you have a different experience or you're a smaller company. We went to 2 other larger companies. Like, is there anything to sniff out or anything to understand? Like, tips to find out, like, oh, you're just asking me for numbers. I can give you numbers today, versus like, oh, you want a full creative solution because you're actually considering us. Is there anything that Tim or
Just like a
Lisa
little
that you guys
clue.
want to?
Yeah.
So you're asking if this is just a like numbers only kind of situation?
Like, yeah, like I've had conversations afterwards with the people who were talking to us. Like, we were never going to hire anyone other than the one person that the creative director asked, but we had to do a check bid to make sure their numbers were not astronomical. Like, if they came in at 250 and we said we'd do it for 120, someone would want to know that.
Okay. Do you want to know the answer?
Yeah, please.
I have a feeling I know what it's going to be, but yeah.
You just asked them.
Yeah.
Joe
You just
went like this.
them.
What else did you want to do? Yeah.
Literally, like, this goes back to what Joe said. Like, what did you say? Say the quiet thing, or ask the quiet. You say it. Yeah.
It's a semi-rhetorical question to ask, but I feel like so many people don't know that is part of some people's process, like doing a check bid. Like, it's not nefarious. It's completely legitimate. I mean, I think we all look at it as like, what the heck? But like, if you just know it, I can actually do you a favor that's really easy. I can give you 3 different previous jobs that had numbers that are close to what you have. And 2 hours later, I'm your best friend because I helped you get your job done. And then you'll think of me again later on, right? Like, I don't think it's a bad thing, but I don't think a lot of people, until they've gone through it 3 or 4 times, understand that it's a technique some people use.
Definitely it can be a technique, but also the way that you're thinking about this, as this is, I'm offering value to this client, even if it is a check bid, like, that's really important for the relationship.
1000%. That's the biggest thing I love that you said, was that like everything's about the relationship. It's not the job today. It's not the job tomorrow. It's 2 jobs from now that person still remembers you.
That dialogue.
Mm-hmm.
What are you gonna say, Joe?
Just gonna say, the reason I advocate for asking the hard questions is exactly what Lisamarie said earlier, which is companies hire experts. They don't hire not experts. And so I understand that there can be anxiety around asking the hard question, right? It's like when you're a little kid and you jump off the high dive for the first time. You're of course terrified when you're up there, and then you do it 1,000 more times and it's the most fun thing ever. At some point, if you are afraid to ask for the information you need to successfully vet a triple bid, that's a you thing. And at some point you just have to do it. So I can't advocate enough for just ripping the Band-Aid and asking the question.
You could take it easy on yourself and ask, is there a check bid? Instead of, am I the check bid? Is there a check bid on this one? And have someone, at least you know that it's a call out. And then if you, based on what you hear, say, is it me? Okay, right.
I think the thing I struggle with is a ton of smoke screens. Like,
Tell me like what you mean by that, Andrew.
Oh, I either A, you're working with a junior, like you're working with someone who's only been at the company. I just had this last week. We lost a gig. Person actually frankly lied about almost everything you asked Lisa to.
Really?
By the way, I'm wearing
Oh,
like I gotta get
nice. Yeah, I love it.
Sorry, I know you're from Maryland, but yeah, no, I've struggled with like all of these things you guys are saying is wonderful if you're dealing with someone who's going to play ball, but I've had so many experiences where they intentionally mislead, and you don't necessarily catch it right away, but then you're like, oh, they need to fill out their paperwork. They were never.
I have an answer for this one. Oh, go ahead.
That?
Go ahead, Tim. Sorry.
Oh, no, I was just saying the constant challenge is the qualifier, right? So it's knowing how to qualify the client is one thing, and then trusting your qualifiers is the next one. Because you can see all red lights, but you, for some reason, just feel desperate. You have to say yes to this project. And you know you need to walk away and you don't, right? So you could jump on a call with a junior and realize, I'm talking to a junior. And then your job can be, as Joe pointed out, like you can be the educator in that moment. Hey, do you know why you're asking me this question? Is it clear to you what you're looking for? It doesn't seem like you have all these answers. Is it possible I can talk to the right person? I mean, there's things that you can kind of do and navigate that relationship to see if there's an upsell or an up moment. Or maybe, you actually didn't lose the job, Andrew. You never got the job. The junior person was there to get a check bid and you didn't bite it or whatever, Yeah.
Yeah. I think in situations like that too, it's like having a lot of awareness, guys, of what's in your control and what's not in your control. You can't control how much experience the person on the other side of the table has. What you can control is how you respond to that person, how you're showing up to the opportunity. So like one thing that I love to talk with my clients about is like do a self-evaluation after every single job, won or lost. Ask yourself, what did I do really well? What didn't work well? What do I need to do differently next time? It's going to open up a lot of good stuff for you.
That's very well said.
One thing also, that one takeaway I'm hearing, Lisamarie, from your expertise on this and all the right opportunities to sort of make a triple bid work for you, is the opposite of that. Sometimes it is not going to work for you, right? Sometimes there is nefarious intention. Sometimes you're not going to get past a smoke screen of sort of like useless obfuscation for no reason. And so then like, then the thing for me becomes, well, okay, if it looks like a rat and it smells like a rat, it's probably a fucking rat. What are our qualifiers and our hard stops for saying no? I think we've elucidated a lot of those as well. And that's worth talking about as well. Sometimes you just got to say no.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's a very hard, that's why you hire a producer instead of be the business owner, make those decisions so that you're not so worried about, that person's not so worried about payroll when they're realizing those 3 R's are not lining up. We should not take this job. You listen to the advice of a discerning person in that moment.
You listen to the advice of
that drive us crazy. Will keep us going. Yeah.
Yeah. Listening to the advice of another person, but like also there's another player in the room and that's your own intuition and your instincts as a business person.
Yeah. Trust those instincts. Yeah. Any other questions? was a great conversation, Lisa. Thank you for driving this for us.
Thank you.
I think this is one of those things we probably never have all of the answers to, or every time we get a triple bid, we just want to call you and say, should I do this one? Should I do this one? Because feels like there's so much nuance that you really need to navigate to do it well. But you got it down to some very practical things. Like you're basically saying it's not that hard. There are some questions you just need to ask them and ask them. The person who's talking to you should know those answers, and none of it is a trade secret. If you're going to do the job well, you need to get to the bottom of it. Yeah, very smart. Well, thank you very much for being part of this thing. And everyone, welcome Lisa. We can give her her first time on the weekly briefing. Nice job.
Thanks.
And Joe, thanks for jumping in here too. I appreciate you jumping in on a weekly basis, helping me keep things going. It's so great to have you guys part of the team. I feel like more of the challenges we see in community and coming up in this industry, there's some big shifts that are taking place to have more minds and more experience kind of dealing with these issues. It's great to have you guys on board thinking through it. And for all of you all,
sorry, Tim. I just think we need to fan this flame of the rivalry between live actioners and animation studios. I think that needs to be said.
Andrew, we already know the answer to this question, don't we? Come on.
We're all the same. That's why I call it motion design. I just say it's a big bucket of everything.
Lisa, it's nice to meet you. I'm friends with Lee. I know you haven't.
Oh yeah.
But
yeah.
That's probably an old name, but thanks for your time.
And those of you in the Baltimore area, I think there's going to be a get together soon, isn't there? Is there like a?
Yeah, there were some dates
Baltimore.
thrown. There were some dates thrown out in one of the chats. On there.
And community. So if you're in the area or want to go down to the area, feel free to join. But thank you all guys for joining us this week. We appreciate it. And as always, it's fun to do this. So we'll see you next week on Weekly Briefing.